Friends of Formula One, Ferrari is preparing such an aggressive package for Spa that it's genuinely rattling the entire Mercedes camp, and right now, I'm going to break down every single card the prancing horse has up its sleeve for the Belgian Grand Prix. Before Silverstone, the engineers at Maranello were honestly prepared to accept a half-second deficit to Mercedes at Spa. That was their internal, honest calculation. But after the British triumph, everything changed completely. The headline move is the total removal of the FTM system for the very first time this entire season. This is a device that has been on the SF26 since the Bahrain tests, one that rivals have been trying to copy for months without success. So, why remove it now? Because the exhaust occlusion caused by this device costs a full 7 horsepower on the incredibly long Kemmel Straight, and by sacrificing rear downforce, Ferrari recovers pure power exactly where they need it most. But that's not all, because Ferrari is also bringing a brand new Macarena EVO wing, featuring a wider opening between the reversible flaps and the main profile, which is expected to deliver 11 additional kilometers per hour at the end of the straights. And then there's the most jaw-dropping detail of all. The mysterious test that Dino Beganovic ran in Austria during the first free practice session, without the FTM system, was absolutely not random. It was actually the secret preparation for Spa, and nobody had figured it out. On top of that, the Ardennes circuit will feature 5 active aerodynamic zones, just like Melbourne. The Federation is keeping a close eye on the Macarena wings following Verstappen's incidents, but Ferrari isn't worried in the slightest because their version has never had a single reliability issue. And waiting in the wings are A-Duo 2, scheduled for Madrid, with a turbocharger intervention, and the third aerodynamic package expected for Zandvoort after the summer break. If you don't want to miss a single update on Ferrari and Formula One, drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel to stay on top of everything. With that said, let's dive straight into the detailed analysis. Let's start with the heart of the package. The prancing horse arrives in Belgium with a specific configuration designed to maximize the SF26 performance and close the power gap that separates it from Mercedes. The instruction from aerodynamicists Loic Serra and Diego Tondi is simple and clear. Strip the aero down to the absolute minimum. The circuit winding through the Ardennes forest is, on paper, not particularly favorable for the red car, much like people were saying before Silverstone, where the Maranello team was already prepared to accept a half-second gap to the silver arrows. But Ferrari isn't abandoning the philosophy they've built in recent weeks. They're going bold, without fear. At Spa, Ferrari will take a major step forward, presenting a completely different face compared to the car that won in Britain, with Charles Leclerc pushing the configuration even further toward outright top speed. And now we get to the most explosive technical move of the weekend. Ferrari will run without the FTM system for the very first time in this 2026 season. The famous flick tail mode is a small wing element placed behind the exhaust that uses hot airflow to generate downforce at the rear. It has been on the SF26 at every single race since the Bahrain tests. Why remove it now? Because the exhaust occlusion created by this device costs a full 7 horsepower at wide open throttle. And on the incredibly long Kemmel Straight, the longest full throttle section on the entire calendar, 7 extra horsepower makes an enormous difference. Loic Serra has decided to give up the rear downforce the system provides in order to recover pure power exactly where it counts, knowing that the corner profile at Spa demands less lateral stability than tracks like Silverstone or Barcelona. It's a surgical decision, and an incredibly brave one. And here comes the bombshell backstory that nobody had pieced together until now. The mysterious test that Dino Beganovic ran in the first free practice session at the Austrian Grand Prix was absolutely not a coincidence. It was actually Ferrari's secret preparation for Belgium. The young Swedish rookie was running Leclerc's SF26 and conducting a series of aerodynamic experiments, one of which included a complete run without the blown exhaust system. At the time, nobody understood why Ferrari had made that apparently strange choice. But it turns out it was exactly the validation of the configuration they're now bringing to Spa. Ferrari collected the data they needed to understand how the SF26 behaves without the FTM system's contribution in a real race environment. And now they can bring the full package without any risk. It's also worth remembering that the Federation has already officially banned the FTM system outright starting in 2027. So Maranello knows this is a technology that can be sacrificed in the name of immediate performance. Now let's move to the second major aerodynamic move in the package. At Spa, Ferrari is expected to debut an evolved version of the Macarena reversible wing, significantly more aggressive than the one seen at Silverstone. This new version opens a much wider gap between the two reversible flaps and the main profile in the low-drag configuration, the so-called X mode. The geometry of that opening is what determines how aggressively the wing sheds drag, and therefore how high the top speed goes. The estimated gain, according to Paulo Nugnes, is 11 additional kilometers per hour at the end of the straights, and that number needs to be stacked on top of the 7 horsepower recovered from removing the FTM system, plus the new hybrid deployment strategy that caught everyone off guard at Silverstone. The package could also include an even lower downforce floor version, assuming the rain stays away. And now, here's a very significant detail about this particular weekend. Formula One has officially confirmed the circuit map for Spa, and it will be the second time this year that there are 5 active aerodynamic zones, where both front and rear movable wings can be opened. This isn't completely new because back in Melbourne at the start of the season, Formula One had already allowed those same 5 zones for straight-line mode. Many people still remember the slightly strange atmosphere of a somewhat flat qualifying session, followed by an exciting but slightly artificial race in the opening laps. Since then, however, regulatory corrections have been introduced, so it's not automatic that more zones will lead to a problematic race in terms of energy management. And this brings us to a very important point that a lot of people are underestimating. The 2026 power units are particularly hungry for electrical energy, even after the improvement updates introduced from Miami onward. But the Ardennes circuit doesn't present the same recharging difficulties as Silverstone. There are more braking zones around the lap, more opportunities to recover electrical energy, and a layout that is far more forgiving of the energy management challenges the SF26 has been navigating since the beginning of the season. The simulator work has been incredibly intense, and it absolutely has not been reduced. Whether or not Hamilton participates, given his well-known reluctance for indoor work, activity has never stopped, with Leclerc and Ferrari's excellent test drivers keeping everything running. Energy management is one of the aspects being most heavily tested at Maranello right now. And let's close with the weather risk and the broader future picture. The weather forecast for the Belgian weekend includes rain, and if bad weather does arrive, the aggressive package that Ferrari's aerodynamicists have designed would completely change in value. In wet conditions, the straight-line speed advantage on the Kemmel Straight would matter much less, and what would be amplified instead is the SF26 true strength, its chassis and aerodynamic balance through the Ardennes corners, places like Rédillon, Pouhon, and Blanchimont. And there's enormous excitement at Maranello looking at the second half of the season. At Zandvoort in the Netherlands, the third major aerodynamic update package is on its way, while the significant modification to the turbocharger through a Duo 2 could arrive on the SF26 as early as the Madrid weekend. Ferrari has an absolutely remarkable roadmap in their hands to attack the championship. The Belgian weekend could genuinely be a turning point in this season. Total FTM removal for the first time, with 7 horsepower recovered on the Kemmel Straight. A new Macarena EVO bringing 11 extra kilometers per hour through a wider flap opening. Beganovic's secret test in Austria revealed as the hidden validation run for Spa. 5 active aerodynamic zones, just like Melbourne, with the Federation watching the Macarena closely, but Ferrari showing zero reliability concerns. Rain risk that would actually amplify the SF26 strengths through the Ardennes corners. And just around the corner, the third package for Zandvoort and Duo 2 on the turbocharger for Madrid. This fight is far from over.